Alright, let's kick things off with what's usually the first thing fans check when OTAs begin: injuries. Yeah, it's not the most exciting part of football, but it's absolutely one of the most important, especially when you're trying to figure out who's going to be available come training camp. And trust me, there's a lot to keep an eye on right now. First off, linebacker DeMarvion Overshown is still working with the rehab group. That's not surprising, given he's coming off a torn ACL, but the fact that he's out there doing some work is actually a good sign. It's going to take time. He's likely not returning until sometime in November, but just seeing him moving around with the team is progress. Then we've got rookie cornerback Kellen Carson and fellow rookie safety Savion Riley. Both guys were limited. Savion Revel, in particular, did some individual drills but then stepped aside during team work. That tells us he's further along than Overshown, but still not quite at full speed. Now here's one you might not have expected: Donovan Wilson. He was also with the rehab group. That one raises an eyebrow. It suggests he had some sort of cleanup procedure done, maybe tied to the shoulder or knee issues he battled late last season. Nothing to panic over yet, but definitely something we'll want to monitor as training camp approaches. Defensive end Sam Williams is another name you probably expected here. He's still recovering from his own ACL tear, so he was in the rehab group. And finally, tight end Princeton fan had to leave the practice early. It's not a huge deal in terms of impact, but it's still worth keeping tabs on. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these injury updates concerns you the most heading into the summer? Drop your take in the comments. And if you had to guess right now, who do you think returns to full form first? Overshown, Wilson, or Williams? Vote in the poll and let's see where the fan base stands. When you're ready, I'll dive into Chapter 2, Dak Prescott's performance and the buzz around his health. Let's talk about the face of the franchise, Dak Prescott. And I know anytime his name comes up, the fan base tends to split into two camps. But regardless of where you stand, there's no denying that what happens with Dak this season will define how far the Cowboys go. So how did he look in OTAs? In a word, sharp. Dak showed up locked in. His footwork was clean, his passes had zip, and the timing with his receivers looked tight, especially with Brandon Cooks and Jalen Tolbert. He was commanding the offense during team drills, and more importantly, he looked fully healthy. No brace, no hesitation, just confident, quick decision-making. This is big. Remember, last year around this time, there was still some concern about his thumb and chemistry with a relatively new group of pass catchers. But now, he's the clear leader, and there's a rhythm starting to form. That's exactly what you want to see in May. But the big storyline around Dak isn't just his on-field performance, it's his contract. With no extension in place yet, the pressure's mounting. He's entering the final year of his deal, and each throw he makes in OTAs is under the microscope. Is the front office watching? Absolutely, because how Dak plays this summer and how he leads could swing the negotiation. Now here's something interesting. Mike McCarthy has been vocal about Dak having more freedom at the line of scrimmage this year. That's a sign of trust, and it might also mean we see a more aggressive version of QB1 in 2025. Could this finally be the season he puts it all together and silences the critics? So I've got a question for you. What's your confidence level in Dak heading into the season? On a scale from 1 to 10, how much do you trust him to deliver when it matters most? Vote in the poll and let me know in the comments what you've seen or heard that gives you hope or concern about Dak in 2025. Next up, in Chapter 3, we've got to break down a certain Micah Parsons moment that's got people talking. And not just about his pass rushing. Let me know when you're ready. Alright, now let's switch to the heart and soul of the Cowboys defense, Micah Parsons. You knew we couldn't go too long without talking about number 11, and once again, he made sure everyone was watching. Not just because of what he did on the field, but what he said off of it. First, the football part. Micah looked explosive. He lined up in multiple spots, edge, linebacker, even had a few snaps inside just to confuse the offense. His get-off was ridiculous, and even in non-contact drills, he was disrupting plays. You could see the offense adjusting just because of where he was lined up. That's the kind of impact player he is. The defense moves as he moves. And he's bulked up a bit too, which tells you he's preparing for more physical trench battles in 2025. Dan Quinn might be gone, but Parsons is still very much the centerpiece of this unit. But here's where things took a turn. After practice, Micah was asked a few questions about the team's leadership and direction, and let's just say, he didn't exactly hold back. He didn't call anyone out directly, but the tone in his voice suggested he's still feeling the sting from how last season ended, and maybe, just maybe, he's not 100% bought into everything that's happening upstairs. He mentioned urgency and said some guys need to wake up. When someone followed up about whether he meant the players or the front office, he just smiled and said, "You can take it however you want." That's classic Micah, passionate, unfiltered, and never boring. But it also adds some intrigue. Is he trying to motivate teammates? Or is it a subtle shot at Jerry Jones and the front office for not doing enough this offseason? So tell me this. Do you think Micah was sending a message, or are we reading too much into it? Drop your thoughts in the comments and vote in. The poll: was Parsons' quote a warning to the team or the front office? Coming up in Chapter 4, we'll dig into one of the biggest OTA surprises, a player who might be forcing his way onto the 53-man roster way earlier than expected. Let me know when you're ready. Now let's talk about one of the biggest surprises so far in OTAs, a player most fans probably didn't even have on their radar coming in. I'm talking about second-year linebacker Tyrus Wheat. Yeah, that name might have flown under the radar last year. Undrafted out of Mississippi State, signed quietly, and spent most of the 2024 season stashed on the practice squad. But here's the thing, he's not flying under the radar anymore. Tyrus Wheat has been turning heads in a serious way. He's been repping with the second-team defense consistently, but he's also gotten snaps alongside the starters when Micah Parsons moves around. What stands out is his motor. This guy doesn't stop. He's not the flashiest, but he's always around the ball. One team insider even said Wheat is forcing his way onto the 53, and I believe it. He's shown solid bend off the edge, holds up well in run support, and isn't making mental mistakes in coverage. That's a big deal when you're trying to make the jump from practice squad to active roster. And here's where things get interesting. The Cowboys didn't draft a true edge guy this year. They added Donovan Azeruaku, but he's more of a developmental piece. That means the door is wide open for a guy like Wheat to climb. With Dan Quinn gone and Mike Zimmer installing a more traditional scheme, there's a need for dependable edge setters, not just flashy pass rushers. Wheat fits that mold. He's disciplined, gritty, and looks like he's been studying the playbook all off-season. Could he be this year's training camp breakout? It's early, but he's making all the right moves to earn that label. What do you think? Is Tyrus Wheat a serious contender to make the 53, or is it just an OTA flash? Vote in the poll and hit the comments with your prediction. Will Tyrus Wheat make the final roster this year? And next, in Chapter 5, we'll break down the backup quarterback battle and why one name might be slipping further down the depth chart. Let me know when you're ready to keep going. Let's shift gears and talk about the quarterback room, because it's quietly becoming one of the more intriguing position battles on this Cowboys roster. Dak Prescott is obviously locked in as the starter. Cooper Rush, the steady veteran, looks like the firm QB2 right now. But the buzz is all around the third spot, and that brings us to Joe Milton. Milton, the rookie out of Tennessee, was brought in with a lot of intrigue, big arm, big body, and big questions. He's got all the tools you'd want in a developmental quarterback, but so far in OTAs, things haven't exactly clicked. Reports from inside practice say Milton has struggled with accuracy and consistency, His deep ball still looks pretty, but his touch on intermediate throws has been erratic. Worse, the mental side, understanding protections, recognizing coverages, still looks like a work in progress. And while Milton is trying to catch up, there's a guy who's quietly making a case. Trey Lance. Remember, the Cowboys traded for Lance last year. He didn't see the field in 2024, but this offseason is his first real chance to prove he can be something in Dallas. And according to multiple observers, Lance has looked sharper than Milton, more comfortable with the offense, and has even flashed some of that dual threat ability that once made him a top 3 pick. The early signs suggest that if the Cowboys only keep 3 quarterbacks, Milton could be the odd man out, and possibly bound for the practice squad if he clears waivers. So here's the real question. Is Joe Milton truly a long-term project the Cowboys are committed to, or just another big-arm experiment that could flame out by the end of August? Cast your vote. In the poll, should the Cowboys keep Trey Lance or Joe Milton as QB3? And tell me in the comments who you'd rather see as the next man up behind Doc and Rush. Alright, that's the full breakdown of the biggest storylines coming out of Cowboys OTAs. If you want, I can now repackage everything into a single flowing voiceover script. Just let me know.